What happened is shocking by itself. What makes it worse is the attitude of the cabin crew, which left this woman to fend for herself. She should have been given another seat. She's in fact sent back to that seat on which somebody has just peed on her. This is completely unacceptable. It's unacceptable when Air India is a Sarkari airline, and now more so because it's actually run by one of India's leading industrial groups. Joining me on the news track, Captain Mohan Ranganathan, aviation safety consultant, former instructor pilot. With us is Vinny Ajmera. She's the founder of Personage, has been in the cabin crew with Jet Airways, Singapore Airlines, Virgin Atlantic. We've got Udit Agarwal, lead consulting and advisory at the Center for Aviation. Let me go across to Vinny Ajmera first, because the cabin crew haven't spoken officially, but from what we've gathered from sources within the airline is that now, because of the fact that the management is more stringent about not allowing for upgrades, etc., the cabin crew feel that they didn't have the right to upgrade this woman. There was no other seat available in business class, and therefore they had nowhere else to seat her. They seated her on the cabin crew seat. To me, that sounds shocking and quite pathetic. Where do you think the cabin crew really went wrong? What should they have done? What did they not do?
So, Rahul, thank you. Thank you for having me on your discussion today. I think the first thing is I'm very confused if there was a line of command, if there was any briefing done before the flight. So it appears like every person was, every team was operating in isolation. So if the cabin crew was confused about how to approach a situation, I'm a little surprised that they didn't ask the pilots. If the pilots were confused, they would have obviously got in touch with the ground authorities. I don't know where the chain of command was to begin with. Now, clearly problem solving has not been something that they have been trained on. And I don't think the excuse that we could not upgrade or downgrade a passenger who has obviously gone through this ordeal. I think somewhere, I'm not sure if the discourse has changed or if the way the cabin crew have been trained has changed, but they perhaps need to know what is the authority and the reasons they are put on board. Are they just there to serve passengers, or are they there to take care of the safety first? So I think somewhere that's gone missing. Clearly, it's a part of laziness as well. I don't think the fact that it was addressed a month later, it's shocking. I think the passenger should have been met with the ground authorities on landing. So that bit, I don't know if they were worried about writing a simple flight report about taking this matter up. I don't think it can be left to a cabin crew's discretion, because there is no gray here. There's a clear black and white, and this
so that's important, because
clear.
you're talking about the lack of command, which is my understanding, Captain Ranganathan, is that inside an aircraft, it's the captain who's in charge, and if the crew have just witnessed such an instance, instead of trying to brush it under the carpet, instead of putting some kind of a cloth on top of the seat where this man has urinated, you say, ma'am, we're very sorry for what happened, please come here and sit, it's first class, we'll upgrade you, we're really sorry about this, and we will then, the moment the flight lands, take action against the unruly passenger. Instead, they make her sit on the crew people's seat. Now, is that not complete dereliction of duty also on the part of the captain of this flight?
See, Rahul, I have to do some plain talking here. The other lady was talking about chain of command. Now, when this thing happened, the protocol requires that the cabin crew inform the captain. And if they have informed the captain, and the captain has the ACAS to inform the company, send a message directly what has happened, and the ground staff should have been prepared to have the security arrest the guy as soon as they landed. So that is one. And what people forget is that there were 4 pilots, because this is a long haul flight. You have the operating crew and the cruise captain. So to say that none of them were aware, it's a joke. And there were 20 cabin crew, 10 operating cabin crew and the deadheading or the cruise cabin crew. So it is a total failure on their part not to act. Now, if I was a captain, I would have stepped out, spoken to the lady, yes, the rules, they may have rules which says do not upgrade without the CMD's permission or anyone in authority. But this is not a normal situation where
Absolutely.
it's not a normal situation where the captain should have taken the responsibility and upgraded her to first class when first class seats were available. That is one. I belong to an old school where when we do a check for a captain, it is not just his ability to take off and land smoothly and take care of engine failures. It is also how he conducts himself as a captain, takes care of the cabin crew as well as the passengers. So one of the things that even when I was checked out for command, the first thing that an examiner says when you check out a guy, would you trust him to send your family with him? You sign out a guy as a captain when you can trust him to take your family. Now, I want to ask Mr. Sindhya and Mr. Chandrasekhar and the DGCA if that lady was their mother or sister.
Correct.
They have brushed it aside like this. I think they should, the airline has failed miserably in this case, and trying to brush it off as in a 30-day no-fly action, and they thought it was a customer problem and not a safety issue. I think that's a joke. Air India has to pull its socks up.
No, but Trisha, if this was Air India run by the government of India, people had relatively lower expectations. Now Air India has supposedly been privatized. It's run by one of India's most respected industrial conglomerates, and yet this goes down on the watch of the Tatas, and that's quite shocking. Surely, in the months that they've been in charge, some kind of stern messaging seems to have gone through about customer care and just doing the right thing. Forget customer care. This is just doing the right thing by a passenger who's a woman who's probably your mother's age. She's just been through trauma. This is just the most natural thing for any human being to do.
I firstly just find it so disturbing, right? When we talk about perhaps we could have expected lower customer service if it was run by the government. We could talk about that when it comes to maybe the food quality. You're not very happy with the food quality, the refreshments were subpar. Here we're talking about a crime that's been perpetrated where a man is peeing on a woman mid-air, right? In this case, mid-air. Who is supposed to ensure that a woman is safe, that she is provided comfort, that she is provided care after enduring a crime of such matter? It's the cabin crew. So obviously they have failed in their responsibility here. I think it's also telling that in both cases, even the more recent case right now that happened when another such incident happened on a flight from Paris to Delhi, that in both these cases, it's women who are being peed upon, that there are women at the other end of this crime. Right, the more vulnerable population, and further that you only see it fit to give a 30-day ban when we have seen how you treat other passengers when it's of political nature. So of course it's perturbing all around, and it goes to show you how are you supposed to feel safe when you are mid-air. It's anyways an unnerving situation, and as a woman, how are you supposed to feel safe if now you have to also account for an unruly passenger who's drunk and peeing on you, and then the excuse being used is, oh, she agreed to settle it amicably mid-air, right? Where is the time given for the woman to even process what has happened to her? How can you use an excuse saying, oh, we didn't pursue the matter further because they agreed to settle it amicably, whilst she's still in the same flight in a contained cabin with the person who peed on her? I just think everyone who's responsible for this needs to be pulled up and questioned and go through sensitivity training.
Shriram Khanna is a leading consumer rights advocate. Should this passenger sue the Tatas and Air India really hard, given what they put her through, given the complete lack of humane response from the passenger, from the crew while they were on board, and from the management and the airline for several weeks after they landed?
Well, I would like to say that it appears that the old habits of the Air India have not yet changed under the Tata management. And I do know that customer service norms are an attitude. And employees of Air India who are doing the cabin service are used to a much lax standard of customer care and service. And I do believe that the way they handled this incident, which I believe is deplorable, needs to be improved. What the Air India management can do, and in terms of training of its employees, in terms of sensitization of its employees, in terms of norms of customer service, in terms of privacy and needs of individual customers boarding its flights, needs to be thoroughly examined. And I would like to say that this is a very, very difficult incident. It's a out of the normal incident, but such uncivilized behavior can be expected out of the ballooning numbers of air travelers. The number of air travelers going abroad from India and coming back to India or traveling
No, why
even
should
within
this be
India.
expected? I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. Unruly, obnoxious behavior should not be expected at all, should not be condoned. There's absolutely, and both Trisha and Vinny shaking their head in disagreement very strongly. Trisha, just because the number of passengers are going up, Shriram Khanna says at some level it's expected because there isn't that level of sensitization before they go out.
I'm not justifying anybody, sir. I'm only saying that the people who are taking to the flights these days, a large number of them have never traveled by
They're
airlines
sitting in
again.
business class.
And
once again, I don't
when
agree
they
with
are
what you're
traveling in
saying.
buses,
Sriram Khanna,
their
they're
behavior
sitting in
is no
business
better.
class. He
So
comes from a
we
well-known
need
Bombay
to
family.
change
I think,
the
may I
norms
come
of
in here?
behavior of citizens of the India in public transport. I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying it's bad. It needs to improve.
Okay, Vinny
And by
wants to respond
criticizing
to
or
what you're saying.
disagreeing,
Vinny
it's
Ajmera,
not
go
going
on.
to improve. First, you have to understand the problem. This is a social
Can I
behavioral
come in?
problem.
It's a larger social behavioral problem, not down to this one obnoxious man. Vinny.
Yes, so I think it's exactly what you said. It's a behavioral, social problem. I don't think it's about flying because you're not allowed to pee on anyone, even on ground. So first of all, the action is wrong, period. And it doesn't matter whether you're traveling by train, bus, or flight. I think that's unacceptable. I totally agree that a sensitivity training, sensitization training is important. At the same time, I'm not really in favor of Air India, Tata. I just think there have to be norms put into place. The airlines responsible, of course, should pay for it and should, answer for it. But in general, it doesn't matter who's changed hands. And this is not a service problem. This is a safety issue, like Trisha mentioned earlier. It is an unruly passenger. I'm just surprised that if there is a crime or there is something unruly that has happened on my aircraft, how does a passenger get to decide, even if the passenger is a victim, whether it has to be hushed away? So once I witness an unruly passenger on my aircraft, I am bound to report it and I'm bound to take action. So even that excuse that the passenger said she was okay with some, I think that's a lie. And what you rightfully said, Rahul, I don't think they should come back and justify why something was done or not done. They should totally take accountability and say that, hey, we messed up. We
Trisha,
really
this
messed up and we
mindset
didn't
that
take
the
decisions.
crew probably didn't want some kind of a departmental inquiry which goes on and on. Therefore, the first instinct is just to try and settle the matter and get on with life. You obviously don't like what happened. It's not as the crew enjoyed this, but you don't want this to go on, and therefore you try and just deal with the matter as best as possible.
See, Rahul, when they swept this under the carpet, you had another incident on the Paris-Delhi flight.
Correct? I agree.
So unless you take firm action, now, as far as I'm concerned, I know a lot of pilots may disagree with what I'm saying, but the captain walking off without taking action is very cowardly. And I wouldn't want to fly or send my family on a flight with a captain like that. And this is something Air India has to seriously look at. You know, what kind of quality of captains they have if they just, don't take action on a passenger safety.
Udit Agarwal, I saw some unruly scenes myself on a flight recently, and the captain didn't come out, didn't want to be seen in the public, and not because he didn't care, but because he probably was concerned that people would start taking videos of him and then that would be on social media, and what clearly wasn't his fault would then become his headache. And therefore, he tried to resolve the matter sitting in his cabin, sitting in his cockpit, without coming out. Does that at all justify or explain what the captain did, or do you think the captain is as much to blame as the cabin crew for this airline?
So the way I look at it, the captain or the person in command is ultimately responsible for every happening on the aircraft. And at this point of time, sitting in the cockpit or not taking relevant measures is maybe not the right approach to take. Apart from that, even if the captain does not want videos or any other social media to be taken about him, he could definitely have still, in these two cases, helped the victims of the situation, could have advised the crew to take appropriate action such that the trauma which they have gone through is minimized to some extent and they're able to feel a little more comfortable. So in this case, I don't think the captain took the right approach. And in a larger perspective, since he's the pilot on command, he definitely has to take responsibility, own up,
Captain
and
Ranganathan, what
reduce
action
the
should specifically be taken against the cabin crew, against the captain, against the management for not doing the right thing in this instance? You've got a new CEO in charge. He's an expat. Obviously, I don't know how much can be expected from him, but he's running the airline, and therefore you'd expect them to do the right and honorable thing.
Let me put it this way. The expat is from Singapore, and I worked there, and on my flight I had a Caucasian passenger misbehaving with the cabin crew. I radioed ahead and he was arrested, and I think he spent 1 month in Cheney prison. Now that's the kind of action you need, you know, and here I think it's a failure of the CRM. The cabin crew didn't know what they have to do, and all that they were worried about is they can't upgrade the lady, which is wrong because this is not a normal situation. And you don't forget that there were 2 other captains, and this is a 14-hour flight, and this incident has happened within the first 4 hours. How did the cabin crew serve so much liquor to the guy so that he's totally drunk and misbehaves like this?
No, but we don't know whether he was served all the alcohol while he was on board or some of it he consumed in the lounge before coming into the flight.
What about the other passengers? This is the Indian attitude. There were other passengers on board. This lady, from what I saw in her letter, she was in seat 9A. Now, there are other passengers there. Why didn't any of them come to her rescue and intervene? You see, here, people don't want to get involved in any controversy. They just avoid. I mean, everyone carries a cell phone with them. If I had been there, I would have filmed that asshole. Sorry to use that word, but that's what I think of him, you know, and humiliated the guy. And this is not the way an airline behaves.
No, but what we're seeing instead, Trisha, is for a long time, they didn't even make the passenger's name public trying to protect his identity. If he's behaved in this obnoxious fashion, surely Shekhar should be named and shamed.
Oh, most definitely. And I just want to say, respectfully, I want to disagree with what, not the earlier panelists, but someone before made it a class issue and said, oh, these are perhaps first-time people who've never been in an aircraft before. I think people, regardless of their socio-economic strata, especially from the lower middle class, know how to behave. They know how to live in community.
This guy's sitting in business class. I don't know what anyone is talking about. He's definitely not lower middle class if he's flying from Delhi to New York on a business class flight.
That's what I mean. We are quick to dismiss people as, you know, oh, this is uneducated behavior. On the contrary, this is a person who has a high-profile job in a multinational company of a global agency and is flying business class. So what it shows, if anything, is a case of entitlement. And again, I go back to the person, however drunk he was, still chose to pee on a female passenger, right? You don't go pee on someone your size, of your gender, who you think could possibly sock you or hit you back. So going back to everything that others have said, how do you reassure passengers to feel safe mid-air? I think here is where we need to see severe commitment and steps being taken that are public in nature. A 30-day ban is really a further insult in the face of the passenger who's been subject to this trauma. Further saying, putting the blame on the passenger. When a crime is committed, it doesn't matter if the survivor of the victim chooses to pursue it or not, a complaint must be filed. And in this case, it should have been an FIR filed from the very beginning. So here I think, one, we should see punitive action. that is publicly stated as to what has taken? Second, what are the sensitization methods that, that they're going to ensure that they imply? And this should all be public in nature so passengers can feel safe.
Shriram Khanna, should someone senior in the management at Air India pay a courtesy and apology visit to this passenger, apologize profusely and then take the strictest legal action possible against Shekhar Mishra?
I agree with you. They not only have to apologize, but they have to put a plan of training and sensitization of all cabin crew on how to handle such out-of-the-box situations. These incidents don't happen every day, but when they happen, they shake the entire reputation of the crew, the captain and the airline together. So I think this has to be taken on a very serious note. And I understand that Tata's, after taking over Air India, has not yet been able to change the attitudes of the employees they have inherited from Air India. Because the Air India employees at all levels, from engineering to crew to pilots, they have been in the habit of taking things easy for a very long time. And it needs that they should have a proper training and sensitization program to ensure that their staff should have training on how to respond to such situations and how to even respond to situations you have not even imagined. I'm sure the airline manuals on crew performance and their conduct does not include a case study on what do you do when such things happen.
Sure,
I'm
but
sure
you do the
nobody
right
could
thing,
have
you do the
imagined. I could
honorable
not have
thing,
imagined
and
that
you do
such
the
a thing can
humane
happen
thing. That is most
on an
important,
aircraft.
which is where the Air India crew and pilot and management and everyone in the airline, frankly, failed. They did not do the right thing, and this is not what you expect from the house of the Tatas. I hope that there will be corrective action, and there will be corrective action soon, because this, remember, is one of India's leading industrial groups. I've just received information that a lookout notice has apparently been put out. So this information coming out just now, that a lookout notice has been put out against the unruly passenger who urinated on this female co-passenger in that airline. A lookout notice against Shekhar Mishra. Our teams are on the lookout for him as well. Now, so are the investigative agencies.